Oh God, how's it going?
I just woke up, man. I'm so sorry.
No, I don't care. If
I, I
uh,
I
if
laid
if
down to watch the race or rewatch the race at like about 3 o'clock, and then I just fell asleep.
yeah, if you were a Lewis Hamilton fan, it was probably extremely exciting. For a Max Verstappen fan, it was just kind of nerve wracking because it was all just sort of a matter of time,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I know we'll get to that.
Mhm.
I was disappointed that the Audi news was apparently not true yet, so that sucks. But
Yeah.
yeah, what are you
I,
gonna do?
I wonder where that came from. I mean, they didn't
I
just pull that out of thin air.
I would imagine they're probably talking about it, but it's
Mhm.
not like finalized, you know.
Yeah.
So that's probably where they're at. But
Yeah. That's what I was reading on all the when you told me, I like looked it up immediately,
Mhm.
and then I was like, oh, it's just saying Audi was looking at it, not that they
Yeah,
had done it yet. So
mhm. Yeah, it was a Autocar, which is a fairly prominent magazine that had reported it, and that was really the only reason I was like, oh, well, that's a reputable source, and they're not a Formula One source, but it wasn't necessarily a Formula One deal because it was about buying the entire,
yeah,
McLaren.
yeah,
So
which would make sense.
yeah, it makes a little bit of sense for them. But well, all right. Well, we'll start this. So why not, right? 107% F1 show. I'm Curtis. That's Bernie. So it's weird that we're doing a show after a weekend where no race happened. There was nothing this past weekend that and me being a Max Verstappen fan, it was just weird that there wasn't any kind of race this weekend that I have to react to at all in any kind of way that's going to cause me a ton of pain, which I guess is good that I don't have to react to a race that caused me just a massive amount of pain.
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose so. I had a lazy weekend, so
Yeah, we had that whole time up anyway, guys. So I think we've we've spoken a lot about the greatness of Lewis Hamilton on this show, and it was undoubtedly a great performance by Lewis Hamilton this weekend.
the entire weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would call it the best necessarily the best thing that Hamilton has ever done because that Mercedes was very fast.
Yeah,
Uh,
clearly the fastest car on track.
However, even given that, with the entire weekend, I don't think it's a shoe in that just anybody who was in that car was going to do what Hamilton did this weekend, which was like, I mean, just totally unfazed by everything that happened, and then just yeah, he Lewis Hamilton, you know,
Yeah, I mean, making up 15 positions on Saturday.
in 24
Um,
laps. It's crazy.
yeah, I know. And then making up 10 positions on Sunday, or 9 positions, I guess, technically, because he started 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember saying to you, if there's after the sprint qualifying, I was like, I could see Hamilton winning this if he gets a timely safety car, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, I figured he would ultimately move up to somewhere behind Perez or Bottas, whoever was in P3. And all he really needed was a safety car to bring the field back together. And that car just looked so quick that I had no doubt that he would, given enough laps, he could eventually overtake Verstappen and Checo to win the race. And I mean, it was a slim margin, not very likely to happen, but he pulled it off. I don't think the safety car really even helped him that much. I mean, I guess it did
No,
pull him
it
closer a couple of seconds, but I think he would have made that up anyway.
no, it was by the time that he got past Checo, um, it was something like 6 seconds, or it was 6 seconds between Max and Lewis at that point.
Yeah.
And then after the safety car, and once he got past Checo, it was, I don't know, like 4.5 seconds or something like that
Hmm.
that Max had pulled out. And then, so I mean, 2 seconds? Lewis went past Max with, what was it, 10, 11 laps to go, and then proceeded to gap the man by 10 seconds
Yeah.
over the rest of the race. I mean, and you have to figure at that point, he's not going that hard. I'm sure once Lewis got past Max, Max probably wasn't either. He was just kind of maintaining the gap to Valtteri. But if you put 10 seconds on him in 10 laps, that Mercedes was ridiculous this weekend.
And that's after he probably should have passed him a lot earlier in the race, but we can get to that later too.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get to that. Because I don't know, the FIA I think has a little bit of explaining to do. But yeah, so Lewis I think Lewis could have done, obviously Lewis could do what he did this weekend because, like Martin Brundle, he can do that because he just did. I think Max, assuming it was the Red Bull, but he had that kind of pace advantage, I think Max certainly would have done the same thing. But I think those are the only two guys I see on this grid having the weekend that Lewis just did, being able to start at the back for the sprint, work his way up, go back, and then work his way up again. Lewis could have started 20th in that race, and I'm fairly confident he would have still won.
I'm pretty sure he probably would have. I mean, considering all the collisions and DNFs in the back of the grid, and how much quicker that car was compared to everybody else. I mean, it looked fast against the Red Bull, and the Red Bull is a really fast car. So
he passed the Red Bulls like he passed, mid-pack cars. He was passing the Red Bulls the way that you usually see him go past the Alpines and the AlphaTauris. Yeah. And in the immediate aftermath, I was mad about it. So I was like, it's just, it's not just the car, but I will say, aside from maybe the one with Checo, when Checo passed him back in the second DRS zone, Lewis really did not have a difficult overtake the entire weekend.
Not really.
There was the one on Norris in the sprint race, and everybody was, oh my God, this overtake by Lewis. He really said, like, what incentive does Lando have to defend against that in the sprint race? There isn't one.
No, not really.
It's right at the end, and he knows that Lewis is just going to end up going back 5 places. So there's no. The only people that had any sort of incentive to fight against Lewis were Max and Checo. And I suppose you could say Gasly and Tsunoda, but what were they going to do against the Mercedes this week?
Yeah, the AlphaTauri didn't look exceptionally quick this weekend anyway.
No, not particularly.
Yeah.
So so it was. I don't know. All right. So I want to ask you this. What do you think of sprint qualifying, just in general? Because we've seen the 3 for the season. What did you think?
I honestly didn't like the idea of it beforehand, but now that I have seen it, I actually like it. I don't know. I mean, we've spoken about this before. I don't know if I want to see it instituted every race weekend, but I think there are certain tracks that are very conducive to a good sprint race. Brazil was one of them. Silverstone was actually one of them that I enjoyed. I can't remember where the other one was. Italy?
That sounds right. Was it
Monza, right?
In Monza? Yeah. That sounds correct.
Yeah, and I think that one wasn't too bad either. Yeah, I think it was Monza because Perez was sent down the grid during the sprint race, going into one of the chicanes. I actually don't mind it, and considering how tight the race is, or the drivers' championship is this year, those 3 points for winning the sprint race are actually pretty important. Right. They actually matter. So, yeah, and anytime there's any extra racing on the weekend is good for the fans in my eyes. Anyway, I think it's much better than having the fans that are actually there sit through another useless practice session that people really only run like 20 minutes of in the hour allotted anyway.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't particularly care for the sprint races because nobody, who's going to take big risks just to pick up one spot, for the race. It's, except for Lewis coming up through the pack like he did. But again, nobody back there had a car to defend and nobody had any incentive to defend against him. Yeah. So, he's literally going up the front straight, passing 2 cars when he doesn't even have DRS yet. I'm like, what are we doing? This
I know that was crazy. It was so easy for him.
It was. I was actually thinking about like if you were doing something on your channel where it's like, hey, what happens? Like I've been at 110% difficulty. Now I'm going to turn it down to 75%. Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah,
And that would
yeah,
have
pretty
been,
much, pretty
yeah, that would have been
much.
Lewis at the sprint race. Like, it's weird. I in terms of racing, I don't care for it. But then you think, well, it's only taking the place of a practice session.
Yeah, pretty much.
So in that way, it's good. And I mean, even if it's a sprint race where there's not a single pass and everybody holds their position, which is not, that hasn't happened. There's been some stuff happening in the sprint races.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in that way, it's been good. I don't know if it's necessarily lived up to the expectations, but that might be more down to the current cars.
Yeah, yeah.
I think maybe next year, if the cars do what they're supposed to do and we get, closer racing, then the sprint races could be a bigger deal than they are now. I would say it's kind of a modest success, I suppose, but
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think so.
but there's probably not, but I don't think there's anything to there might not be giant positives, but there's certainly no negatives.
No, no. I mean, the one thing I do like is it does kind of throw in another factor into the strategy for the entire weekend. Like you said, people probably aren't going to take too many risks. They're probably going to drive pretty conservatively. But, if somebody does really bad in the traditional qualifying, now they have an opportunity. Hey, do we want to throw on the softer compound tires?
Mhm.
Maybe risk it a little bit more for the chocolate biscuit. I think that's the
Mhm.
saying, risk it for the, or whatever. And, try to make up, yeah, risk it for the chocolate biscuit or something like that. I don't know. It's a British saying. Try to make
Oh,
up,
the British.
a few positions in the sprint qualifying to give themselves a better position for the race. Um, if in 2022 they say we want to give this another test with maybe another 4 or 5 races, I wouldn't be super against it, honestly. I would probably say, okay, yeah, new regulations, let's try it again with these new cars, see how it works. I was pretty against it when it first started because I thought, what's it really gonna matter? It's just gonna be Red Bull and Mercedes at the front anyway. But
Right.
at least this past weekend we've seen that it can be a pretty big factor to the race, and it could really help or hurt you. Gasly lost a couple of positions on Saturday, which kind of put him on the back foot for Sunday, even
Mhm.
though he looked pretty good on pace. Because he lost those positions, he ultimately finished a little bit lower than he probably should have on
Right.
Sunday. And then obviously we've already talked about Hamilton making up the 15
Yeah,
positions that
just
really helped him.
ridiculous.
Yeah. So, like I will agree with you. There's probably more positives than there are negatives. Um, but like I said, I wouldn't want to see it every single race weekend. There are some tracks like Monaco and
Yeah,
Singapore
it
that I
would
probably wouldn't be good at.
it would be useless. The
Yeah.
the best part of Monaco is qualifying.
Yeah.
It's the weak link is. Oh, I mean, this year was interesting anyway,
Yeah, but
but
with pit strategy, that's about it.
yeah, it's not. The cars are too big, too wide, and you're not really getting passes on track. So you know. At a track like that, yeah, you're going to want to preserve your regular qualifying and but at somewhere like Interlagos where you just were, where yeah, you can do some passing with DRS, or even just without, as we saw with Hamilton and some of the other cars that were faster in a straight line. Yeah, you can do that, and it makes sense. I've read that they're basically saying that every single track now wants sprint qualifying just because of how it's been for the fans and whatnot. I don't think that they're going to do it at every race, but for yeah, if they just pick out the tracks where it's like, okay, these are the we have a 22 race schedule or a 24 race schedule. Let's take a quarter of the races, 20, six of these races, where you'd have the most chances for overtaking, and those are the ones that get the sprint qualifyings. You all right? Hold on. You all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you lose audio? You're right.
Okay, there we go.
All right, you okay?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, there we go. All right, good.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
editing
missed-
that out.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I
No,
missed like the last 10 seconds of what you said.
okay. No, I was just saying that like we said, just the tracks with the most overtaking should be the tracks that get the sprint qualifying. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point otherwise?
Yeah. So what did you think? All right. So obviously the reason for Lewis Hamilton having to come back up through the field was the whole rear wing fiasco, which
Yeah, I don't know. Did
was-
Mercedes ever get a chance to look at it yet?
yeah, they didn't. I don't know that they got the part back by the time that they had left there, because at some point they'll be allowed to fix the part. But so what it was, when the DRS is open, it's 85 millimeters, and they showed during the race the way that they test it is they put that, they put that tool through there, and it should stand up to X amount of force or whatnot. And according to Toto,
Yeah.
it came down to 1/5 of 1 millimeter that the wing was off by on the, I think they just said it was on the outsides and not in the center. And so, I mean,
Okay.
literally the fiddliest, smallest possible margin I think that you could have and still get disqualified for it. So
all right. So it wasn't anything egregious.
no,
It
for sure
was
not. And
Barely.
no,
Yeah.
Red Bull still seems to think that there is something going on with Mercedes's rear wing, because I mean, just
Mhm.
the new power unit that they put in the car obviously helps. Christian Horner was talking about, because they asked Horner about the performance boost that Mercedes was likely to get from that, and why wouldn't Red Bull match it and do the same. And so what Horner had to say about it was that a brand new Mercedes power unit is generally good for, I think he said, about 0.4 a lap from a brand new engine until the end of the engine's life. But the fall off on a Honda is only about 1/10 from when the engine is brand new to when the engine needs to be rebuilt. So, which is impressive for Honda, but I guess it is kind of nice for Mercedes that they were just able to throw a brand new motor in the back of the car and pick up almost 0.5 second a lap. So between that, and I don't know if there is anything going on with the rear wing, I tend to think it's just that Mercedes has just kept developing the car throughout the year. They have whatever it is going on with their rear suspension, that the car sits way down, stalls the wing at speed, which is legal because it's not a movable aero device. You're moving the suspension, which you can do. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, but the actual penalty, it's one of those, I understand why the penalty has to be enforced the way that it does, because so since they started writing rules for racing, the guys building the cars have been building parts to fail in such a way that it improves their performance basically forever. So I'm on Formula One Twitter, which is awful, and everybody's like, oh, it was a parts failure, it was a failure. It doesn't matter if it was a failure, because then you would just design the part to fail in such a way that it improves your performance, and you would say, well, it's a failure, and you wouldn't get and you wouldn't get penalized.
We can't help it. Yeah.
Right. So Seb Vettel got disqualified from a race because a fuel lift pump failed, so they couldn't get a sample of the fuel in the car, or they couldn't get a large enough sample of fuel in the car. Well, that's a failure, but he's still disqualified. So it's just it has to. I don't necessarily think that the punishment fits the crime, but that does very much have to be a hard and fast rule for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so, because if you're gonna let this go, then where do you
where's the line?
End it? Yeah, this was 1/5 of a millimeter.
Yeah, 0.2 millimeter. Just crazy.
If you say that's fine. If the next guy's 0.3 millimeters, do you let that go also, or do you say no, this is too much now? Just
right.
The rules are the rules. You're over the limit. You have to be punished, and build a more stable car if you don't want this to happen next time.
Well, and so other people were complaining because Red Bull has done a lot of changing of their rear wing in Park Farm. I think what they did for like the last 3 races, where they've they've subbed out the wing for one of identical spec, but because they had some issue with the wing, so people were mad. Well, and actually, Toto Wolff was one of those people that, well, Red Bull's changing their wing in Park Farm. Well, yeah, because theirs failed or is going to fail in such a way that it stays within specs, and Mercedes failed in such a way that it was no longer in spec, and that's the difference. So, that's the rule: is if you have a part that you think is going to fail, you can seek permission, and then you can change the part. So it's stuff that's within the rules or stuff that's not. All the complaining about it is kind of ridiculous, but ultimately the rules exist for a reason, and Mercedes got bit by it, but obviously, they weren't, in the end, they really were not hindered by it.
Yeah, it didn't really matter. There was an interesting sentence from Horner saying Mercedes was running Monaco level downforce and was still 30 miles or 30 kilometers an hour quicker than Verstappen on the lap that he passed him. I mean, if that's true, I mean, he's probably, Mercedes obviously isn't running Monaco type downforce, but they're probably running pretty high downforce on that car. It's pretty impressive that they're still 30 kph faster than the Red Bulls on their fastest lap there. So whatever they did, I don't know if it's just the engine or not, or if they found a different setup, if they brought upgrades this weekend. That's pretty impressive pace difference between those two cars.
Yeah, I mean that's a ridiculous difference. 30 kph is
yeah.
stupid.
I mean, I'm sure he was running ERS during that lap to try and get out.
Oh, for sure.
And he had DRS as well. So
it's weird. So at Mexico they run Monaco wings because of the elevation.
Yeah, they have to.
2,000 meters above sea level. At Interlagos, I think it's 800 meters above sea level, so it's not
somewhere around there.
It's not quite Mexico, but yeah, you can still run a really big wing on the car because the air is thinner. So I assume Red Bull also had to run a fairly robust downforce package. So
yeah, Brazil's pretty tight and twisty and turny, so
yeah,
they wouldn't need it no matter what.
Right, and Red Bull was better in the middle section of the track. In which, I mean, let's face it, that's been pretty much the Red Bull thing all season.
Yeah, I think they were almost like a third of a second quicker through that middle sector.
Yeah, that's really how he was able to keep Lewis behind him for as long as he did.
Yeah,
was just he would pull out just enough that even if he was still in DRS range, Lewis wasn't necessarily close to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it was a pretty big advantage, and I realize it stands out more on that track. Cutter will probably even it up a little bit more, but just seeing the I think I told you earlier, I saw the onboard from F1 2021 of the Saudi street circuit, and that is going to be a problem for Red Bull because it's just 2 drag strips with high speed turns at each end.
Yeah, so, other than turns the chicane at turn 1 and 2, there's really no hard braking zones at all.
I think Red Bull's just gonna have to run their car with no front or rear wings on it.
Yeah,
that's just all. That's all it's gonna be. It's guys, we just we gotta see what we can do here.
I don't know if I don't know if Red Bull looks like they're gonna have a very good end to this year. I gave them the advantage at Brazil, and we all saw how much quicker the Mercedes.
Yeah, that was
were.
bad. It wasn't just by a little either.
Yeah, so now I'm not quite sure what the outlook is for Red Bull. I think it's going to be a tight race to the end here, but that's great for the fans. It's
for sure.
The closer the racing is, the better it is. I am a little disappointed that Max won't be able to win his first championship, but I mean, it's Lewis Hamilton in a Mercedes. Well, there's very little you can do.
It's funny that even Max was kind of pragmatic about that before the race. He's like, I'll be here next year too.
Right. He still has another 15 years in Formula One.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, Lewis can only drive for so long, but he's very clearly still on top of his game. Is Hamilton? He's if he's lost a step, then it's only because he was so much better than everybody else, and now he's just a little bit better than everybody else.
Yeah.
So what the gap is now, what, 15, 16 points, something like that, or maybe 13. I forget. Somewhere in that ballpark, because I think
Yeah.
it was 21 going into the race, and then Lewis pulled back, what, 5?
So 15 is or yeah, oh no, 14. 14.
Is it 14 and a half though?
No, 14 straight because they
It's
both
14
have
straight.
half. Yeah, they
Oh
both have
God!
half
So if
points.
so in the last 3 race, if Lewis wins, Max finishes second, Lewis will win by 1 point.
Yeah, and there's the fastest lap point
Yeah,
thrown in there as well.
there is that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just had Valtteri stay back and just go for that point, because at this point it doesn't matter what he scores anymore anyway. And I think Mercedes are still ahead in the constructors by 11.
Yeah, they
Okay.
pulled a little bit of a gap this weekend.
Yeah.
Because it was I think 1 point was all that was in it between them. But they might just be like, all right, Checo, get behind Valtteri, and as soon as you go past the pit line on the last lap, they'll have Checo come in, set the last lap at the fastest lap, just to keep it off of Lewis. You know.
What did you think of Checo asking Verstappen to give him DRS to defend from Hamilton? I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did, and
I thought there was no chance in hell.
No,
Max was slowing down.
they weren't gonna. It wasn't gonna help. It's just. I understand why Max did what he did by not dropping back, and Checo, I thought, did an excellent job especially on the when Lewis passed him and then Checo passed him back. That was that was probably the best racing, I guess, of the weekend, was right there.
Yeah.
I get what Checo was thinking, because I don't know. Ultimately, yeah, Lewis went past. I don't think that there was anything that was going to prevent that. It would have been a DRS train, but the Mercedes is still just faster. So
yeah,
all that would have been doing is, he would have passed one of them in one DRS zone, then he would have passed Max in the other DRS zone. So, I understand what Checo was going for, but it wasn't gonna help.
Yeah, I don't think they even passed that message on to Max, because at that point Checo was 2 seconds behind anyway. And even if they did tell Max, hey, Checo's asking for DRS, I mean, put yourself in Max's position. The Mercedes is much quicker than you.
Right.
You're 2 seconds ahead of Checo. Your best bet at that point is to let Checo stay back there, kind of slow down Hamilton as much as possible, and then you just haul ass trying to make a large enough gap, because that Hamilton's going to eventually get you at some point anyway. So slowing down to try and give Checo DRS there, like you said, and I agree with you, it wouldn't have done much at that point.
No,
kudos to him for asking, though.
Oh yeah, no, I think if it was like, if the gap was not as big and it was a track where where the DRS was maybe, or where the slipstream and all that stuff was less effective, then that probably, you could have started a DRS train and that would have been fine. But just Mercedes with DRS, versus the Red Bull with DRS, it didn't matter. The Mercedes was just so much quicker. He was, again, 30 kilometers per hour. Like,
yeah.
All right, great. So he would have went past him at 15 kilometers per hour faster instead of 30.
Yeah.
Instead of whipping past him, he would have just went past him very quickly. So
right. And Checo didn't look really quick at the Brazil circuit anyway.
No,
didn't have a really strong Saturday. He got stuck behind the Ferrari for quite a while, which was kind of odd. You'd think he'd get out in front of that Ferrari pretty quickly, but he was stuck behind him for a few laps, and then did he finish P3 eventually in the sprint race?
Checo? No, because he started the race behind Carlos Sainz. So the Red Bull started second and fourth, which actually ended up working out well, because Checo had that really good start and got past Valtteri. So right at the beginning, it looked really good for Red Bull, and then it stopped looking good for Red Bull pretty much right away.
Well, I think Bottas kind of benefited from the first VSC. He pitted, or
for sure. Yeah,
VSC.
that's what kept him ahead of Checo. Yeah.
But even then, after that, Checo started falling back from Valtteri anyway. So I don't think he just I think he just didn't have the pace this weekend, and
Mhm.
Max probably knew that, and that's probably why he was just like, nah, I'm just gonna keep pushing and try to make this gap larger.
So, what do you make of the non-penalty call on Max Verstappen?
I watched the Sky broadcast, and they weren't showing the onboard,
Which apparently they don't have it.
which is odd because I think F1 TV has it. But I will have to agree with Martin Brundle saying um, it was pretty naughty, and I think
Mhm.
he's very lucky to have gotten away with it because it looked like he cut the wheel right.
Yeah, it looked like he
Um,
stopped turning.
yeah, partway through the turn, which reminds me of the Rosberg Hamilton
Yeah,
incident in
just
Austria.
go straight.
Yeah, it's like you have to turn in at some point,
Right.
and again, Lewis's experience really helped him out of this situation because there probably would have been contact had he not
Right.
turned right. I mean, it was so blatant. Max went off the track by a good 3-4 meters,
Mhm.
and it didn't look like your normal understeering out of a corner that pushes you wide. It
Mhm.
just looked like he stopped turning.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I will have to agree with Martin Brundle there. He got very lucky that he did not get penalized for that. And then I wasn't too happy with the swerving around on track, trying to break the
Yeah, that
toe later
was.
on either.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
care for that.
but I mean, at that point, you're Max. This car's slow. You don't have a chance of defending. You kind of have to push the limits a little bit to try and defend your position. I
Mhm.
can understand why he did it, but you, considering what happened in the sprint race at Silverstone, I think Lewis can't be too upset with that call.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like Max deserved a penalty, but I'm also glad that they just let them race
Yeah,
because
there
it
wasn't contact.
no, there was
Yeah,
no contact, and he didn't push him off into gravel, pushed him off
right,
into a
right.
runoff, and then he also went off into the runoff.
Yeah.
And
They both live to continue fighting as well.
yeah,
So
and I feel like the FIA looked at it and was like, look, Hamilton's probably going to go past. If not, he'll at least get, a couple more good looks at it, even if he doesn't actually somehow make it stick. So I think Horner had called Michael Massey. Poor Michael Massey. He says everybody calling him all race.
yeah, yeah,
And Horner said that's the definition of let them race. And I tend to agree with Christian Horner in that,
yeah. I don't think
people.
that was Horner. I think that was um
Oh, it might.
their
Oh, was it?
strategist or something.
Was it
Yeah,
somebody?
yeah.
Okay,
Somebody from Red Bulls
okay.
called them up anyway.
And it's just I don't know, like the NHL does it that way, where the penalties a lot of times are it's not just intent; it is actually the results. If
Yeah,
you
it's
if
the
you check a
action
guy
of.
into the boards and he's fine, well, yeah, you get your minor penalty. But if he gets a
Mhm.
concussion, then now
Yeah,
you're suspended for a game.
yeah. It's a game misconduct.
And so somebody had said, well, was it there was like an incident with it was Norris and or no, Checo and was it Checo and Leclerc that Checo forced him off twice?
What was that at Austria?
Yeah, it was early in the season. It was
Yeah,
he
yeah,
did it
yeah. It was
twice,
Austria. Yeah, it was
and
Austria.
and somebody's like, well, what's the difference? Because he still pushed him off. And it's like, well, the difference is that Checo and Leclerc are not in a championship fight with 4 races remaining. That's the
Yeah,
difference. And
yeah.
like, oh, the rules
And they
can't be
made
different. Well,
contact.
yeah, that's I'm sorry. Yes, the rules are going to be different.
Yeah,
And I didn't think that it was necessarily egregious, although I did find it odd that the FIA made their ruling, they say, without ever actually seeing Max is on board. So they don't
yeah.
know necessarily if he opened his hands.
Well, they have telemetry, so I assume
Yeah, you'd
they
probably
can
be able to
see
look
it.
at that.
Yeah, you can see the numbers.
So
Um,
I don't know. I again, yeah, if they would have given him a penalty, I would have thought that he deserved it.
mhm.
But he didn't, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think if there was contact there and Lewis came out on the worst end of it, if Lewis had damage to his front wing,
Yeah,
I could see the FIA saying, yeah, that was a little too much.
yeah,
You kind of ruined his race there a little bit.
right.
We'll give you a 5-second penalty. But these two have had history in the past.
Mhm.
FIA have um, kind of given Hamilton a little bit of favor, like
Mhm.
at the British GP. So I think maybe they kind of saw this as kind of an equalizing call here, saying no harm, no foul, really. And they've had calls go Hamilton's way before, so not penalizing Max. I'm okay with that. But I would have been okay with them giving him a penalty as well.
Yeah, it really would have been fine either way. And
Yeah,
I don't know. I just those guys, Max and Lewis are on another level from everybody else right now. And unfortunately, what they're doing on the track is more important than what everybody else is doing.
yeah,
So yeah, you have to look at who it involves. If it was, like was it there was a penalty on Yuki Tsunoda
yeah.
for
Jeez.
for what the contact with Lance Stroll. I don't know how I felt about that, but yeah, the rules unfortunately are going to be different for Yuki Tsunoda than they are for Max Verstappen
Oh yeah,
because
yeah.
because Max Verstappen is Max Verstappen, and even when he has Lewis on the outside and he opens the wheel a little bit and forces both of them off, if Hamilton did the same thing, you'd say, well, the guy doing that is very, very good.
Mhm.
He can do that. If it was Yuki Tsunoda, and I loved Yuki Tsunoda, but yeah, if Yuki did that, you'd be like, yeah, man, you haven't earned the right to do that yet.
Right. I mean, every sport gives star preferred treatment
Right.
to their star guys, so it's no difference here. And I mean, hey, look, it turned out well for everybody because it was really great racing
Mhm.
after that. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, no harm, no foul. I do think 10 seconds was kind of harsh for that Yuki Tsunoda move there. I mean, they
Yeah.
were like P16 at that point, like
Yeah.
10 seconds.
It
It's not
was.
like I mean, I think ultimately Lance Stroll retired at the end, but I don't think it was a 10-second worthy penalty
I
there.
didn't. I mean, it was a little bit of a send, but it wasn't egregious.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, so it, there's a video I saw on Twitter earlier, almost the exact same move made by one Nikita Mazepin on Mick
Jeez.
Schumacher.
Okay.
And, I realized they're teammates, so Mick didn't squeeze him like Stroll did. But Mazepin threw it down in there and he made it stick. And you have to give him credit. It was a very nice pass by
Mhm.
Nikita Mazepin. And it was literally the exact same thing as what Tsunoda did. But Stroll squeezed him and then Tsunoda got the penalty. So I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. That to me, that was even a racing incident. It's man,
Yeah.
he sent it, but if you're Stroll and you give him the room,
There was room there. Yeah, there
yeah, like
was
what?
room for a
Yeah,
while.
what are you doing? Why
Yeah.
are you leaving him room?
Yeah. And then squeezing him off at the last second. Yeah. What do you
Yeah,
expect to
no,
happen?
yeah. I mean, again, I like I like Stroll. I don't think super highly of him,
Yeah.
so I don't. I'm gonna side with Tsunoda. You know,
I
generally,
do like that Sonoda was super adamant about Stroll being at fault even after the race.
well,
Um,
why
I love
not?
that attitude. Yeah, I love that attitude. I have been disappointed by Yuki's performances this year, but he's very different from past Japanese drivers.
He's aggressive.
He's way more aggressive. He sticks to his guns and he's more vocal about that stuff. Sometimes too
Mhm.
vocal. Sometimes I want to be like, Yuki, shut the hell up, man. You're not doing
Right.
yourselves any favor. But I do like it. I think he'll have a more successful year next year. I think he'll kind of look back on this year, think, all right, I got to calm down a little bit. I'm a rookie. I'm not in a super fast car,
Right.
bring it down a notch. And he should be fine next year.
He's been, yes, Sonoda has been. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I thought everybody thought, oh yeah, Sonoda, yeah, he's great, and then he cooled off, and he's had ups and downs. He's a rookie. What do you want?
Yeah, yeah.
He's been fine. I still feel of the rookie drivers. I mean, obviously he's had the best season because he's the only one that scored points.
Mhm.
Not that you can't really blame Mick Schumacher for the Haas not having any points because that car is terrible.
No.
And Mazepin too, where he's I'm going to defend Nikita Mazepin for a second here. Since they updated his chassis mid-year, he's been better.
He's been better. Yeah.
Yeah,
He beat Mick yesterday, didn't he?
I don't know if it actually. I mean, he did pass him on the track. Let's see. Yeah, Mazepin finished 17th.
Yeah, and even in qualifying, I guess he was having a pretty decent race until one little mistake on his last final lap.
It's funny. I saw that afterwards when they were talking to him in Q2, and he was upset. And
yeah, he was crying.
and because he's qualified last every race this year, and he had a really good lap going that probably would have put him P19.
Yeah,
but
honestly,
but that's better. And I guess there's some people from his side of the garage leaving Haas or something like that. So there's other stuff going on. So he was emotional about it. And I just posted on Twitter. I'm like I watched it. I'm like, will somebody please just give Nikita Mazepin a hug?
Yeah.
Like he just looks so sad, I didn't think at the start of the season that, or even at any point this season, that I would be defending Nikita Mazepin. But I'm like, come on, man, he's got it tough right now. It's as tough as it can be for like a 20-something-year-old Formula One driver whose dad is a Russian oil billionaire. I realize it's not like the same level of difficult that the average person deals with.
Yeah.
but at the same time, I'm like just watching him, I'm like, that sucks, man. That that he had that good lap going, and he messed it up. He feels bad about it. I felt bad for him. I really did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not his biggest fan, but I think some people have to remember that this is still some 20-something-year-old kid,
right?
Who probably wasn't raised up in the best situation, considering his dad is a billionaire oil tycoon.
Right.
We got to cut him some slack every now and then. Yeah, he's a billionaire kid, but he's still a 20-year-old, moron like the rest of us were when we were that age.
Yeah, I think the main thing with Mazepin has been the on-track stuff. Yeah. The not getting out of the way quickly enough for blue flags and that sort of thing. I mean, if he figures that out, maybe he can be competent. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what kind of car Haas comes up with for next season. They have a lot of wind tunnel time, and they do still have their close relationship with Ferrari.
Yeah, and that'll definitely help.
And also, I say that Ferrari engine has seemed to have picked up a bit.
Yeah, they found some pace with the upgrade to Leclerc's car, I think, a couple weeks back. So
yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Mazepin and even Mick, I don't really think either of them are going to be world beaters, but they could both be guys that that score some points. If Haas gives them a good car, who knows?
Yeah. I will give it to Mazepin though. Ever since he started his F1 career, his off the track, he hasn't gotten into much trouble off the track. So I will give him that.
Probably good.
Yeah. Since that video leaked before the season started last year, which got him into some hot water, but he's been pretty good off the track. Like you said, I agree with you. He has to kind of clean up his on track bull crap, but it seems like the guy's trying to recover from his past. So I will watch him with an open mind, give him another opportunity to kind of prove that he's not a complete shitbag human.
Yeah, there is that. And if he can be, as a driver, if he, like, I realize his dad is like funding the team, so. But I don't know, man. If you could just do a little bit of like a Nicholas Latifi, just just spend next year, just see how little money you can make Haas spend on your car throughout the year,
and just don't be a dick.
Yeah, and if you occasionally run into a point, if the car is competitive, then great. Just don't bend the car. That's really been the thing with him and Schumacher all years. They've made Haas spend quite a lot of money on cars that Haas does not want to spend a goddamn dime on.
I know. I mean, I know the money's coming from his dad, but I'm sure Haas still does. Gene Haas still doesn't want to spend that money fixing cars that, since they're so slow, shouldn't be getting into accidents in the first place.
No, I think that, because the main change this year was they cut, like a triangle, that there was a triangular piece that was taken out of the floor of the car to reduce downforce or whatnot. And I'm sure with Mercedes, it was all new tubs and floors that they made, and they optimized around that piece and all that stuff. And I think Haas just like went over there with tin snips and just kind of cut, just cut the carbon fiber out to shape and was just like, send it.
Yep. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that. All right, we're good to go.
Yeah, we're good. Just leave the raw carbon fiber. I'm like, guys, glue that close. Nope. Yeah. Glue costs money, y'all.
Yeah. But yeah, we probably should give props to Mazepin for performing better, both on Saturday and on Sunday, for the first time.
That was probably, I mean, both the Haas's finished 2 laps down, but like I said, he passed Mick on the track, I mean, it was if you watch the onboard, he sent it. It was a nice move that he made on Mick, so congratulations, Nikita Mazepin, I guess.
Yeah. What do we want to move on to now? Ferrari, McLaren?
Yeah. So McLaren had the edge a lot of the season, but since Ferrari's turned it on just as a time when McLaren has hit a little bit of a rough patch. And I mean, like I hope that next year we see Ferrari winning races again, but for now, Ferrari McLaren is somewhat satisfying to watch.
Yeah, I have to imagine McLaren being up after the summer break. They must have just been like, okay, we look like we have a pretty good advantage here. I have to wonder if they've stopped developing that car, because USA, it looked like they were pretty close. Mexico, Ferrari ran away with it. And then here again, Ferrari just far outperformed McLaren. So I don't know if Ferrari's continuing to work on the car. They have the money to do it, so I'm not surprised if they are. And McLaren just kind of stopped developing maybe a little bit too early.
I think with Ferrari, because Ferrari's been developing their hybrid system and their motor. And so, stuff that will carry over to next season. Whereas McLaren, there's really not, they have the Mercedes engine. That's really all that they can do. So that's pretty much it for them. Where Ferrari, Ferrari came out with their new 800-volt hybrid system, and that was a decent, I think they said 0.2 a lap or something like that they got out of that, which is, I mean, that's not insignificant.
Seems to be working.
Yeah. And so, so if they continue that and they have their engine concept for next season, which I'm trying to think, it's still the conventional turbo like they have now, not the split turbo like Honda and Mercedes have, but it's something about the geometry of the engine that is supposed to be kind of wild, and they got a big gain out of it. And so I don't know, they think that it's going to be good for next year. Who knows? So I don't know, just it's good to see at the top of the mid pack. I would rather see those teams competing for wins, consistently, but at least if they're competing against somebody, they're competing against each other, because, in Formula One, McLaren, Ferrari is pretty timeless.
Yeah. Which is why I was kind of disappointed when you told me that Audi might be buying on McLaren. I thought, oh man, McLaren's such a staple Formula One. I'd hate to see them lose that branding. I'm surprised that Norris has been kind of cooling off the last couple of races as well. He started on such a hot streak, and he had it going for quite a long while. And then ever since Ricciardo won at Monza, ever since McLaren won too, they've just been kind of, I don't know, resting on their laurels or something like that. They just have not been performing well at all since that Monza race. And I don't know. I think they're still behind Ferrari, right? They're behind Ferrari now, right?
Because Ferrari gained what 19, 20-ish, or 19 points.
Yeah, so they're down
this weekend
and a half points.
Yeah, McLaren only picked up the 1 for Norris, finishing 10th. So
yeah,
on the McLaren Audi thing, which I still think might happen. So obviously it was reported this morning, because we're recording this on what day is today? Say Monday.
Yes, Monday evening.
Okay, we're recording this on Monday, and it was reported by Autocar this morning that Audi had bought out McLaren.
Mhm.
and not McLaren, not just McLaren, the Formula One team, but the McLaren group. So the whole
Yes.
McLaren road cars and everything that
Everything.
McLaren does,
The whole shebang.
which makes some sense for Audi, I suppose. Um, it is a, as we know, there's a big barrier to entry into Formula One.
Mhm.
Having to develop your own car plus the $200 million that it costs just to get on the grid for a new team. Although that can be waived by the existing teams. And for a team like, if Audi said they were going to come in and do a full factory effort, that would be waived. Just,
Yeah.
It's to keep out, I think I said, it's to keep out the riffraff, USF1, Rich Energy, anybody who, who says, oh, I'm going to start a Formula One team. It's like, okay, well, where's your extra $200 million that now, by the way, you can't spend on developing your car? I'm confident it still might happen, because even if you look at, McLaren put out a statement denying it, and they didn't say that it was false. They said it was inaccurate. So it could still be something that's going on or something that's talked about. Audi no commented it. Audi did not flat out deny it. So could still go through. I'm 99.9% sure that it wouldn't change the branding of McLaren. I think you would see, I don't think you would see that become an Audi team. I think you would see it as a McLaren Audi if Audi goes forward with developing their own engine.
Yeah.
And there's still also talks that Audi or Porsche might tie up with Red Bull, for their powertrains development.
Yeah, that's been a rumor for a little while now.
Yeah, that one's been going around for a bit.
Yep.
So that could still, I don't know. As I'm an Audi enthusiast. So if Audi gets on the grid one way or another, hopefully, I would prefer Red Bull, obviously.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't know what it is. I don't care for Lando Norris. He seems like a pleasant enough guy. Not a Norris fan. Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems to be a huge fan favorite, but the kid kind of comes off as arrogant to me. And he hasn't, I mean, let's face it, the McLaren's probably been the third, fourth fastest car on the grid. So it's not like he's really performing above and beyond what that car can do. He's pretty much finishing where he should be finishing in a car.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that he's necessarily flattering the car.
No,
it's been a good car.
I think so. Yeah. I think Sainz was a better driver when he was teamed up with Sainz at McLaren. And I think now that Ricciardo's kind of got a grasp on that car, I think Ricciardo's probably still the better driver on that team. But I mean, he's popular because he streams on Twitch and he streams with other YouTubers that create F1 video game content, and I think that's why he's super popular. But I'm not a huge fan of Lando Norris either. I don't hate the kid.
No, I don't have an issue with him. I don't know. He's not my least favorite driver on the grid. Which at some point, I guess we'll have to do that show. Who is your least favorite of the current Formula One drivers?
Yeah. I do think he's overhyped, though.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody online yesterday where I was talking about Hamilton, and when I said that Hamilton and Max are the only two guys that would have had that weekend in that car, and somebody said, well, they basically said that they thought that in addition to them, that they thought Danny Rick, Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, and Alonso and Gasly would have all been able to do what Hamilton did this past weekend. And of those guys,
that's a bit long list.
The only guy on that list that I kind of said maybe is Alonso. And maybe not even current Alonso. Although I don't know, Alonso still seems to have his fastball. And you could maybe talk me into Danny Rick, except I'm like, well, Ricciardo struggled to get to grips with the car. So you would have to say, all right, well, if it was their car, but with that pace advantage, I don't know. I still feel strongly that it's just Lewis and Max, But you could probably talk me into Alonso. Why not?
Yeah.
You know,
And maybe Leclerc. We haven't seen Leclerc enough in a dominant car. I mean, he did have that one season in 2019,
so
but not enough body of work.
are you maybe not the way to say it? So Leclerc, I like Leclerc a lot. I rate him highly.
Mhm.
Do we think any differently of Leclerc because Sainz has come in first season in the Ferrari and has been basically a match for Charles Leclerc?
Yeah.
I mean, does
Yeah.
that?
I still rate Signs very highly as
Mhm.
well. Don't get me wrong. I think
Yeah, I don't want to sound
Leclerc.
like
I
I'm
think
not
Signs is a
slighting
very good
Carlos
driver.
Sainz. So
Yeah. Um, I will have to give the edge to Leclerc between those two. I know there's not much of a difference, but Leclerc is also a young kid in his fourth year, and Sainz has been around for a little while longer.
Mhm.
I know that Leclerc has been at Ferrari longer, but it is. I will have to give it to you though. That Sainz has come in and kind of. I'd have to look at how wide the gaps are between their finishes because I know the
Mhm.
points they're not that far apart. But I'll have to look at the gaps between where they finish at the end of every individual race. Now that you mentioned it, I don't know if it is Leclerc benefiting from a good car because I thought he performed the hell out of that Sauber in
He
2018.
did, yeah.
Probably,
He
yeah,
definitely flattered that car.
extracted as much as he could.
Yep.
Yeah. And Signs, I think Signs is underappreciated, underhyped.
Yeah,
I think he's a
yeah.
much better driver than a lot of people give him credit for. So, yeah, next year if Ferrari has like a good car, it'll be pretty cool to see if Leclerc is that good or if maybe the car was just flattering Leclerc.
You could probably, at least this season, I think Ferrari probably has overall the best driver lineup in that,
I think so.
they don't have Hamilton or Max, but Charles Leclerc is, you could make the argument of Charles Leclerc as being the third best driver on the grid. And
Mhm.
Carlos Sainz is very close to him. And
Yeah.
so as far as your actual driver pairing, taking them both together, Ferrari, yeah, they might have the best pairing on the grid. So if they come out with a good car next season, which I hope they do, because it's just, I'm not a Ferrari fanboy, but it's more fun when Ferrari is up there. I mean, it's more
Yeah.
fun when more than two teams have a chance to win any given race.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. Signs is underrated. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's unspectacular because at times he is. Yeah, he's not a guy that you think of as being one of the best drivers on the grid, but he's probably top 6, somewhere in that ballpark,
Yeah.
6 or 7. I mean,
I would
who's
think
who's
so.
who's better? Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc is probably better. George Russell,
Maybe.
George Russell.
I would think so. I don't know.
Ricardo when he's on, and when
I was
he's
about to say
in tune with the car. Gasly,
maybe Gasly. They might
maybe
be
Gasly.
on par.
Alonso, probably. Well,
yeah. It's so hard to tell because a lot of these good drivers are driving in cars that aren't really that great.
It's more than anybody on the grid. I can't get a read on Alpine. I have no idea what that car even is.
Right.
I mean, it's still, I think, the best looking car on the grid. But it's weird because it's sometimes they show up and hey, look, they're running right there with Ferrari, and then sometimes, oh wait, no, they're down at the back with Alfa Romeo. So I mean, it's such a weird concept that they have with this big bulbous aero box at the top, and I guess there's something weird that Renault does with their exhaust that's different from like what everybody else does. I don't know what the hell it is. But yeah, I cannot get a read on that car, and I can't really, Alonso, is Alonso, and Ocon is, he's pretty much been right there with Alonso. So maybe Ocon's better than I think too. So I don't know. It's
Yeah, I mean, he's looked really good in some races as well this year, and then
Did
other
win a
times
race this
he's
year.
just looked like trash. Yeah,
yeah, he's been
yeah. You're right. You're right.
yeah, he's not been particularly
They're
consistent.
either battling. They're either battling for the points, like P7, P8,
Mhm.
or they're like at the back of the grid.
Right.
So it's kind of an odd performance from that car.
Yeah, it's just, I'm still really just hoping that with the regs next year that we just get like 5 teams with a realistic chance to win. If you told me,
Right.
okay, it's going to be, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, Alpine, and Alfa Romeo, or something like, those are going to be your top 5 teams, and on any given week, one of those drivers of those cars could win. I would sign up for that.
Yeah, or at least have an opportunity to win or threaten to come out with a victory. That'd be cool. I mean, this year has probably been the closest racing since maybe the first half of 2017, where Ferrari and Mercedes were going at it pretty evenly. So, I think this year has been an exceptionally good year for fans when it comes to close racing at the top. But I think I would like to see closer racing throughout the grid next year, and I hope that the regulations really help with that.
It looks like they should, just in the way that the cars are going to make downforce next season. It should allow them to actually, run within a second of each other, because, one of the main things, that they have like the outwash, I guess, of the air now, which is why you get so much of the dirty air, is a lot of it is the car's designed for it. If you're Mercedes, it's like, yeah, if we can make our car go through the air as well as possible and also dirty up the air behind us as much as possible, that's a benefit. And it seems like they've designed the rules to not allow that. And also they're bringing back at least partially ground effect. And with ground effect, you're going to get cleaner air behind the car anyway, because you don't have to run as big of a wing, because the whole car is the wing, so hopefully the regs do what they're supposed to do, and we don't get I always bring it up, we don't get a Braun GP situation where somebody comes out with a trick double diffuser and and is a second and a half a lap faster than everybody else. I don't think anybody wants that.
Now, if it does turn into closer racing, what are your thoughts on DRS? Do you want to see it go, or would you like to see it stay?
I would like to see it stay to begin with, but
okay,
if it looks like, you don't need it because you can get right up to the back of a guy and actually go past him, then all right, then we'll get rid of it. I think it's a fine thing to leave on the cars for now. It wouldn't do any harm that, we're gonna have DRS on the cars, and then 3 races into the season, you're like, you know what? These guys can pass without it. All right, we're just going to stop using it. We'll do this race and we'll see how it goes if we stop using it. So it's fine that they're developing the cars with it. Or, and honestly, it can be race by race, and why not? You have tracks where, you need the DRS for a little bit of passing, and tracks that you don't. So, I don't see why not. It would be great if the regulations work so well that we don't need DRS anymore. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was gonna say that's really the thing that I'm hoping for. I don't mind DRS, because there is still that, you have to get there and you have to make a pass. I think at times it's too powerful. This past weekend, the Mercedes was fast enough. If there wasn't any DRS, Lewis probably still would have found a way around Max. But up until when he passed Max, every DRS overtake that Lewis had was just the easiest looking overtake you've ever seen in your life, because even his non-DRS overtakes were easy. So
Yeah.
Look, DRS has been a necessary evil with the way that Aero has gone on Formula One cars. So if they rein that in and the cars are still quick, but they're able to race with each other, I don't know, if you have, so say at this point in the season, I think they said Fernando Alonso is leading Seb Vettel in the number of overtakes that they've made this season. So he's made something like 100. Well, we'll call it 100 overtakes through 20 races, right?
Yeah.
So 5 overtakes a race. How many of those do you think are DRS overtakes?
Oh,
Most of them.
I guarantee 98%.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
So he's got, say, 20 that aren't. If, so he has 100 overtakes. I'm like, how many overtakes would I want him to have that, because it would be a lower number if there was just no DRS at all. If he said, well, Alonso has 60 overtakes, but none of them are DRS, I think everybody would take that.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it wouldn't just be him, it would be everybody, So yeah, I would leave it on the cars. And I think the FIA has said as much, where they said that they could get rid of it. And I don't even know that this is a word. They said they could get rid of it in the medium term. So
yeah,
basically saying, yeah, we'll bring in the cars, and if we want to, we'll get rid of it. Which honestly, I'm like, well, that's fine.
I think I think anything that helps to create more overtaking is always good for the sport. I hear people complaining about DRS and about how cars used to be able to overtake prior to DRS, and I'm just like, I don't know if you've actually looked at the stats. There were less over.
Hold on, I think I lost your audio again.
Are we back?
Yeah, no, you good. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. If you actually go back and look at the stats, there were less overtakes before DRS than there were after DRS was.
I mean, look
put in.
Look at the 90s. You had 4 cars finish on the lead lap. It's
exactly.
Yeah, the leader is literally 8 seconds a lap faster. Like, do you want to go back to that?
And there were 24 cars on the grid at that point. There were more cars and there were less overtakes. I'm looking at the stats right now. 1994, there were 287 overtakes all season.
Really?
And in 2020, we're not even done yet. 2020 or last year, 2020, 628 overtakes.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand it when people say cars used to be able to overtake before DRS. I'm just like, the stats don't really back that up, man.
No, and DRS is not, at this point, they do a pretty decent job of balancing it most times. That it's not like just a cheat code, because one, it's not a given that you're going to be able to get to within a second of a guy, and even Lewis, in the race yesterday, for a while, he was, he was starting every lap 0.9 of a second behind Max, and then he had 2 DRS zones, but he couldn't get past him. So it's not as if it's a push to pass. It's
a magic button.
Yeah, you still have a second behind, but you really have to be, depending on the length of the straight, 5-6 tenths, something like that, off of a guy at the start of the DRS zone to make a fairly easy pass. 7-8 tenths back, you're man, you got DRS, but you're gonna have to send it. You're gonna have to do something brave to make that stick. So, and that is actually also one of the, with the difference in speed and the line and all that stuff, the way the guys have to brake for the turn, there are times where that's legitimately interesting. A guy has to throw it down the inside and he locks up and ends up shooting off into the grass, and the guy that was ahead of him just goes on his merry way. So
yeah, right.
Like I said, so I guess all that to say, I hope that we don't need DRS, but I'm glad that it's something that is available. So
yeah, I think so too.
So if the cars come out and they still can't pass, but then if they also didn't have DRS, that would be an issue.
Yeah, I I think it also adds again to the kind of race strategy, since now you may have the fastest car, but as long as the car behind you can kind of keep up with you on track,
Mhm.
uh, going into the DRS zone, now you still have to worry about defending.
Right.
And I think just having any little thing like that, any more factors into how you plan your race weekend is good for me. And it's not just simply like, oh, we're faster, we don't have to worry about anything as long as we can keep them behind us. The dirtier will keep them behind. And it's like, no, well, now you have to worry about DRS, so you kind of have to set up your car for, do you want straight line speed, do you want more downforce in the corners or something like that? Now you have to worry about DRS too. Anything that adds to the complexity of the strategy, I think, is good in my book.
Yeah, and I mean it is Formula One, so it's all about coming up with ways for this stuff to work. Bernie Eccleston has joked about putting sprinklers at the tracks, to
I think that
make
would be
artificial
amazing.
wet races, and it's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
while you kind of hate the idea of it, everybody loves a mixed wet dry race, um,
yeah. Right,
so
right.
it's one of those things that, like, if you started doing it in 3 years, it would seem like the most natural thing in the world. That's what it's been like with
Probably.
DRS. I remember when they first started DRS, people were like, oh, this is gimmicky, this is stupid. Well, here we are in 2021 and everybody understands DRS. We're all used to it. And by and large, I don't think most people, I think, understand, especially with these cars, that it's been a necessary thing for them to do.
Yeah, you
So,
you need it. Otherwise, there would be even less overtaking than there were in the 1990s,
no, it'd be terrible.
which would
And
just, yeah, it would just be a bore to watch.
yeah, no, it really would not be a whole hell of a lot of fun. So, I
Yeah.
don't know. Is there anything else from the race itself or the weekend that was interesting that we didn't cover? Or no,
No. Maybe
I mean,
just
it's
honorable
mostly
mention to
Hamilton and Max
Latifi.
was basically it.
Yeah. Honorable mention to Latifi for beating George in qualifying for the first time
Yes,
ever.
yeah, big weekend for our guy Nicholas Latifi. This is, of
Yeah.
course, a
Although George ended up coming back.
oh yeah, I mean, it's George Russell. What do you want?
Yeah.
But this
Yeah.
is first and foremost a Nicholas Latifi fan podcast these days.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good to see. I know he was happy
Mhm.
about it, and because
I'm happy for
George.
him.
Oh yeah, no, I mean George in qualify. I mean, qualifying is what George is known for. So
Yeah.
for him to actually do that, be quicker than George on merit, I'm like, he got it done before George goes off to Mercedes. So he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to have George leave and have never beaten George at qualifying. So that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad for Nicholas Latifi for that.
Yeah.
What else? Aston Martin was not good this weekend. Those cars
No.
just never looked good, which is baffling because it's essentially still last year's Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, I know Stroll had a little altercation there with Yuki, but I don't think his race would have been that much better had he
No.
gone through that turn clean anyway. Vettel barely missing out. I think Norris just overtaking him before the end of the race, bouncing him from the points. Yeah, Aston Martin, I don't know what their deal is. They looked pretty decent at the beginning of the year, and now they're one of the back markers now, unfortunately.
I have to think that they stopped developing that car pretty early in the season.
I think so too.
When they saw that there wasn't going to be, I'll put this way, they definitely thought that their car was going to be a lot better this year. Because
I think so.
You remember how much Otmar and everybody was bitching about that car at the beginning of the year, or not bitching about the car, but bitching about the rules change and taking away the floor from the low rate cars, specifically them.
Yeah.
And how much that hurt them. So I have to think that once they saw that they weren't getting that back, and they probably looked at it and said, what would we have to do to fix this, decided it wasn't worth it, and turned their attention to next year's car.
Yeah.
Because that car has just been that Aston Martin has probably been the most disappointing car of the season. Because they're really, I guess when you think about it, that's probably the only car that's really underachieved by a lot this year. Because Mercedes and Red Bull are about where we thought that they would be, as are
Yep.
Ferrari and McLaren.
Yep.
AlphaTauri has been good. I
Yeah,
guess
certain
Alpine
races have
too.
been really good.
Alpine has probably also been a little bit of a disappointment. Um, and then even like Alfa Romeo, you knew you weren't going to get a lot from Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
Williams has certainly been better.
Overachieving, yes.
Haas is doing exactly what we thought that they were going to.
Yeah.
And then Aston Martin is just, because even the amount that Alpine is underachieving by is not nearly what Aston Martin is underachieving by. We thought going into the season that the Aston Martin would be the second or third best car on the grid.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy how much they missed by.
Which is a bit of concern because, like you mentioned earlier, the Aston Martin is, it's not too dissimilar from the Mercedes.
Yeah, it's last year's Mercedes.
Yeah, but you can see how a company and a team like Mercedes can deal with the regulations changing, right, and how a team like Aston Martin can't. I know that this is their first year in Formula One, recently anyway. It's just kind of crazy, the contrast between those two teams, how one car can still pretty much shoot to the top and stay there, and then the other team is kind of going in the opposite direction. And I know that they aren't exactly the same cars, but they're pretty much the same car. Well, they were at the beginning of the year anyway, pretty similar cars, aerodynamically anyway, and it's the same exact engine. So
you wouldn't think it would be this giant gap.
Yeah.
But the
just
Aston
wanted to
is,
see how bad they are.
I think it is really that, because at the beginning of the season, the Mercedes had real legitimate issues, and Mercedes has worked real hard through the whole season, because they said they stopped developing that car like a month and a half ago, and that is a lie. There's no chance that they're actively developing that car right now. They have to be.
So. Yeah.
So Aston Martin, I have to think, just punted on it early, because Mercedes, because they developed, the low rate concept that they have, and they have a really firm understanding of not just why it works, but how to deal with it when it doesn't. And Aston Martin, I'm sure whoever Aston Martin has designing their car and working in their aero department is really, really good. But I don't think that they have the same handle on the entire concept of the low rake, aero profile that Mercedes does. And some of it also is probably just they it's a cost benefit analysis thing, where they said, look, we could spend this money to develop this car, or we can look at it for next season, where if we kind of finish at the back, we get more wind tunnel time, blah blah blah. I think once they figured out that it was not going to be an easy fix on the car, that they just punted it, and and that was pretty much it for their season. I can't imagine that Aston has done anything on that car in the last 10, 12 races. Why would you?
Other than the 2 good weekends they had at Monaco and then Baku, the weekend after that, they haven't been remarkable. I know Vettel had a good day at Hungary, but that was kind of due to other reasons.
Right.
Everybody out in front pretty much DNFing. But they've been very unremarkable this year. Again, I have to give credit to Vettel for getting some decent performances out of that kind of piece of crap car. Kind of goes to show he still has something left in the tank, but I think next year, I hope they roll out a decent car next year, because I don't know if Vettel will stay in F1 too much longer if Aston Martin comes out next year and they bomb again. I think he might just have enough and call it quits at that point.
Yeah, Vettel has enough stuff going on in his life that I don't see Seb Vettel as being a guy that would want to hang around with a an uncompetitive car. If
Yeah.
And I think this season, with the way that with the way that Racing Point was last year, I think it was reasonable for Seb to think that Aston Martin was going to be a contender for best of the rest at least.
Yeah.
And not that I think that Seb would be disappointed or anything with the way that this season is going, because he's Seb Vettel and he genuinely seems to be the nicest man on earth.
Yeah, I think he knew it was going to be a transition year anyway for both the team and himself. So I don't think he
for
had
sure.
super high expectations.
Yeah, I think that they'll be, because they have they're building their new, they have their new building and all that stuff for Aston Martin going up. So
yeah,
they'll be in a better spot next year. I'm sure they'll be fine, which again, it would be better to see that car and Seb Vettel, competitive,
yeah.
If that's it. If you said, hey, Aston Martin's going to have the best car next season and Seb Vettel's going to win his 5th championship, I would every day.
I would be on board with
100% fine with it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, honestly, if you don't like Seb Vettel, what are we doing, guys?
Yeah. I mean, I like him, but I think even if he was in Hamilton's Mercedes, I don't think he'd be able to beat Verstappen.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I love the guy, but I think he's just kind of on the downhill portion of his career, and I've been saying that all season. So, but I think he can still have some pretty solid seasons. At the end of his career,
he's still. I mean, look, even Seb with where he is now, he's still better than Lance Stroll. So,
far.
it's not like, I mean, actually, it was funny that Vettel having him and Alonso having the most overtakes on the season, I thought was actually kind of surprising on Vettel, because that was even like through his whole career when he was winning the championships with Red Bull. People are like, well, he struggles to come through the pack. He needs to start up front. That was always, and not necessarily like a knock from like commentators, but somehow that got to be his reputation with fans. And so it's like, look, man, he's got this not great car. And, between he and Fernando Alonso, they're going back and forth with, having the most overtakes this season. So it says to me, maybe we've gotten a more aggressive Seb Vettel this season, which is, it's always nice to see guys like that just be like, yeah, you know what? I was kind of passive. I'm a 4-time world champion. Why not? I'm just going to try to change things up,
Right. I mean, why not give it a shot?
But I don't know. It'd be good if they give him a really good car next year. Honestly, at this point, the main thing that I'm rooting for is just for the regulations next year to tighten it all up and give us good racing where guys can follow close to each other and actually make passes on track. That's really all that anybody wants.
Yeah, only 6 cars finished on the lead lap yesterday.
Yes,
which is a little disconcerting. I know Brazil is a short lap. It's only about a minute and 10 seconds. Or
minute 11 was the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, right. Okay. So I can see why not too many cars finished on the lead lap. I guess I suppose it's better than like the 80s and 90s, where sometimes only the winning car finished on the lead lap. So it's not quite as bad as that. But
to be fair, if Hamilton didn't get disqualified from qualifying, that's probably what would have happened. He might have came up and lapped the entire field.
Yeah, they were close to lapping the Ferraris. They were only about 20 seconds away.
Yeah, so, I'm looking at that now.
Yeah.
Almost coming up on the third best car on the grid. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know.
But yeah, that was a pretty good race weekend. I think Brazil is very conducive to a sprint race. Because it was good at the front, Bottas and Verstappen fighting for positions or for pole position, and then the midfield pack kind of fighting for position on the grid, and then Lewis coming from the back and seeing how far he could get to the front. I thought it was a very good Saturday sprint race, and then the race on Sunday was very good at the front as well. Probably not super competitive throughout the entire field, but at the very least, for the podium positions, that was fun to watch. And it's Interlagos. There's always good racing here. But yeah, I was pretty happy with this weekend in general.
Yeah, it was certainly different from anything else that the season has offered so far too. With Lewis coming all the way through the pack and just the feeling of just dread. Just to be sitting there hoping that Max wins and just watching Lewis. And I'm just like, well, I know this is going to happen. I'd prefer it happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I guess kudos to Max for holding on for almost 60 laps or 60-ish laps, something like that. That's
really
longer, impressive. I think, than I thought that he was going to be able to keep Lewis behind him. It was almost like Lewis just kind of like flipped on a switch. Where he's like, okay, well, I'm going to pass you now, because at one point on this because it was a 2-stop race. So on the first set of hard tires, at one point, I don't know if it was just Lewis just managing or something, but the gap basically stabilized. It was 1.7-ish seconds, something like that. And it pretty much stayed there. And then they came into the pits. Max went for the undercut. Lewis came out 3 seconds behind him, and then probably five laps later he's past him. So at that point it was like it almost just felt like Lewis is just like, all right, well, I'm not going to leave him any chance to respond after a pit stop or anything like that. I'm just going to hang on, and then we're just going to go right past him.
Yeah, considering that Checo was only able to hang on for about a dozen or so laps, the fact that Max held off for almost 90% of the race was really impressive on his part there. And just goes to show how much, how great of a driver he is. And we all kind of knew that Lewis was going to overtake him eventually. And I'm not a big fan of the off the track storylines and stuff like that, like with the penalties and stuff like that. But I think that very much added to the drama of the weekend, and
for sure.
Built up even more hype for the sprint race and then the eventual race as well. So all around, I think it was just really good weekend.
So I will say one thing is, I heard Max say it of all. So when to go back to Lewis taking a new engine, Max seemed to think that this giant pace advantage that Mercedes enjoyed is really only for the first weekend that they use a new motor for. He specifically said he'll have that advantage for a weekend. So I'm like, well, if you're Mercedes and it's, say, Saudi Arabia, right? Take another new motor. Just put another one in there. Why not? You're going to pick up half a second a lap on that track, so all right, we'll take our 5-place grid penalty, which, let's face it, is really a 4-place grid penalty, because you're going to have Valtteri starting up there ahead of him. So all right, well, for half a second a lap, yes, we'll go and we'll take a new motor, and there's no sprint qualifying, so it's not like it's going to be 6th,
pretty 7th. Much.
So,
and it's not like he'll have difficulty with the Ferraris or the McLarens that start in front of him.
No, because for the most part, those guys don't, they couldn't at this track, but there's no incentive for them to fight Lewis. They may as well just pull over and let him pass and then continue their race. All they're going to do fighting Lewis is just slow down their own race and use up their tires.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I was thinking about that. I'm like, what's to stop Mercedes from the next 3 races just take a new engine every race? Why not?
It is quite expensive, but Mercedes can afford it.
I gotta assume too, if they're just like, all right, well, look, usually we make these engines last 8 races. I'll tell you what, guys, build us one that only has to last 4 races. Little tighter tolerances, just it's within specs, but it's just just
I could see
goose it a little bit.
I could see it. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they did for this last one.
That engine was a monster.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just like one that they were sitting on, where it's like, yeah, man, this one is just, I don't know, like it looked like he had an extra 50 horsepower when he was going past those guys.
Was it a new spec? Was it a new spec or?
No, it was supposed to be. No, so that's the thing, and that's what Red Bull is. One of the things that they're wondering about with the motors, like it's supposed to be the same spec motor, but that car is so it's either the same spec motor and they've just done something ridiculous with the aero,
But could have been.
I don't know. I don't know what they were doing, but it's certainly interesting.
I mean, I know that they've outlawed the ability to change from party mode back to like a lower fuel consumption mode during the
Mhm.
race. So, but
But
I
I
wouldn't be
think you can
surprised.
set up for that for the whole weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they were just like, well, we only have 4 races left. We might as well
Yeah,
just set it onto
do
party
it.
mode and
Yeah,
run
run
it
it
like
ragged.
that.
Why
Yeah.
not? And
So
and because he still had, if they get 2 races out of that motor with it making a ton of power, and then they have to go back to the other one, all right, well, so be it.
yeah,
Or
especially if those 2 races are victories.
yeah,
It'll
well,
be
then it's
worth it
worth
for
it.
them. Yeah.
And then all right, well, we did that. Well, let's do another one. Because we got 2 races out of it, juicing the crap out of it. So
Yeah.
we'll take our 6th place grid penalty, and we'll have our super hot motor for the last 2 races.
Yeah.
It doesn't, at least from Red Bull, it doesn't sound like there's anything that Honda can do, to cat.
I got my cat bothering me too.
Yeah, no, they're great. It doesn't sound like there's anything that they can do about it. It sounds like the Honda basically runs the way that it runs, and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Honda is probably better when it comes to lasting a little bit longer and wearing
Mhm.
down a little bit better. But I
Right.
think Mercedes is still producing way more power out of their engines.
It seems
so,
that way. And
yeah.
the Honda only, like we said, over its lifespan, however many races it is, the Honda motor only loses a tenth of a second over the course of a lap, which is a pretty amazing thing for Honda to do.
Mhm.
But if the Mercedes loses half a second, well, I mean, if it starts out making an extra 30 horsepower, and
Yeah.
then that's fine. That's fine. You can do that. Hi, Cat.
It
Bye,
is a
Cat.
little disconcerting for Mercedes though that Ricardo had an engine failure in the race. So I don't know what caused it and if it's a
Mhm.
concern for Mercedes, but the fact that a Mercedes power unit failed in the race um, probably can't be too good for
Well,
their engines.
see, that'll be Mercedes' reasoning for putting another new engine in Hamilton's
Yeah.
car instead of just saying that they want the advantage. Like, oh yeah, no, we were concerned about reliability issues, so we're just gonna jam another hot new motor into this car for Saudi Arabia. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, like
That's
you said, a 5 place grid penalty is really only a 2 place grid penalty because
yeah, it's really
you'll
just
lose. But
it's
yeah,
just Max and Checo.
yeah, the 2 Red Bulls will be the only ones really getting an advantage from starting in front of him. So it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see. But I love the way that the season, as it's ending, is shaping up.
It's certainly unpredictable.
Yeah.
3 races left. I'm like, yeah, no, I have no idea. I really don't know what's gonna watch. We're gonna show up to Cutter, and Max is gonna be half a second a lap faster than everybody else. I'm like, oh, the Red Bull's back to being the fastest car, and they'll go to Saudi Arabia, and Lewis will be 3 seconds a lap faster than everybody else because
Yeah.
at that track, why not?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I don't think I have anything else for this one. Do you have anything you're working on?
No, I haven't been working on much recently.
Yeah,
I
I've been
do still have
lazy.
that one esports qualifying event left to go. They did just release the Saudi Arabia track on the game today, so
Yeah, I
I
saw
still have to
it. Yeah,
still have to check that out. I haven't played the game in a few days, but I'll have to jump back on to check that one out.
there you go. I'm telling you, it's literally just 2 drag strips with corners
Yeah,
at the end. So it's
it
crazy.
it looks pretty boring. Pretty much everybody, all the content creators on YouTube that do F1 content are like, it's probably one of the worst tracks
Oh,
they've
good
raced on
times.
yet. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. Good
And
news for me.
well, I mean, who even knows if the track's going to be done in time? You know, it's
Yeah.
crazy. They're still working on it with 3 weeks to go.
None of the hotels are built yet or something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Although it is, I suppose it's a little bit deceptive because whenever they show pictures of it, they show pictures of the construction during the day and there's nobody around because they're doing the construction mostly overnight, because it's a lot cooler outside and easy to work.
Yeah. I'm glad that they're all night races. I don't think those cars would be able to handle a day race in the desert.
No, although I guess that probably would favor Red Bull because they have the smaller Honda turbo, but who knows?
Yeah.
I have nothing that I'm working on whatsoever. Someday, I guess I'll probably get back to a podcast of some sort, but haven't felt like it. Oh well.
Yeah. Oh, there's no gap between the next race, right? I think the next race is next.
Yeah,
this
no, no,
weekend.
it's
Okay.
race week, buddy. Oh yeah,
Oh, that is crazy. They're
yeah.
going from Brazil to Qatar all
Well,
in a
it was,
week.
but so how stupid was it that they had a gap? They took a week off between Texas and Mexico instead of between Mexico and Brazil. So you could drive, you could drive from Coda to Mexico City in a day,
Yeah,
and
pretty
they
much.
and they had a week off instead of having those races be consecutive weeks. And then we ended up with some teams not even getting their engines in the cars until like Thursday night because a bunch of the freight got stuck in Miami or something like that. I thought that was so weird when I saw that Coda and Mexico are right next to each other on the schedule. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense for a double header. It's not. There's a week in between. What the hell are we doing?
Yeah. I don't remember what race this race was replacing. Was it Australia? Qatar was replacing Australia, or
I don't know. No, isn't
I don't
Australia
remember what it
usually at the
was.
beginning of the season? I forget.
It is,
Or
but I
is it
think this year they changed it up.
Turkey or whatever the hell was canceled? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah,
next
you're right
season
though.
all
It
the
is. It is kind of a. I think it's just because they had canceled races halfway through the season. I think there was supposed to be we were supposed to be at some other track. It might have been closer than Qatar is to Brazil, but yeah, it is kind of weird that they didn't just bother changing it up and saying, "Hey, we're just gonna go straight to
we're gonna do
Mexico."
this.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but I think
I
they
never
have all
know
that
what they
crap
do.
planned before the season. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway,
I think that's pretty much it.
I think
Yeah.
we're good.
That's
Pretty
basically
good
everything.
weekend
So,
overall. It was a good race weekend.
Yeah.
Excited to see what racing will be like at Qatar.
Mhm.
But I think that's about it from us.
yeah, I'm good with it. I will we'll post this. It'll go up on YouTube again. Apparently, some people are actually watching it on YouTube. That's fun.
Yeah, we're in the double digits.
I know, right? Although I think we did more in the podcast this past week than we did on YouTube, and then the week before that was more on YouTube than on the podcast. But you get about the same figures on both, so I'm fine with that. I assume it's probably just
Good
you
numbers
watching. It's just you streaming the YouTube over and over and over again. So
No. I watched it once when I posted it, and that's about it.
I have not watched it at all. So although it's
Hey.
better now since it's the gallery view instead of going full screen to just whoever's talking. So that's probably better.
Hey, we picked up another subscriber.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, I'm at 27.
27 subscribers. There we go. Look, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, there
So,
you go.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go to bed. So,
Yeah.
guys, we will leave you here. Thank you very much for listening. You can follow Bernie on YouTube, and I guess follow us on YouTube, Boonjamin Bok
Mhm.
Choi, and he posts stuff from F1 2021. Posts the podcast. There goes the cat. So the cat will be on YouTube, which is great.
Yep.
And that's pretty much it. Like I said, I don't have anything to plug. Maybe next week. Maybe I'll have something to plug next week.
Yeah. No race this weekend, so we probably won't see our 10 viewers until. Oh wait, no.
Yeah, there is a race.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
Cutter's this
There is a
weekend.
race this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Now, what are you
I got
talking about?
confused. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week, I guess.
Yeah, well, and then we'll be off the week after that because the week after that will be Thanksgiving weekend, and there won't be a race, obviously. And I will be in Virginia that weekend, so that's cool.
Oh, good for you. Safe.
Yeah, I got
safe
family in
travels.
Virginia, so we're gonna go to Virginia for Thanksgiving. So why not? So
Virginia.
down to Roanoke, which we did that 3 years ago. Cat,
Mhm.
make up your mind, dude.
Yeah, I got family down in Maryland, right across the border. I think they're in Silver Springs. My
Oh, I think
sister's
I've
about-
actually been there. So,
Yeah, about to move to LA.
Oh, that's a move. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
she's
good times.
actually at my parents this weekend. I just saw her yesterday for dinner. So
Oh.
yeah,
Well, there we go.
we got ties in on the East Coast.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for listening and or watching. Or if you're some absolute weirdo that's done both, then I guess thank you for that as well.
Yeah.
get yourself checked out. I'm sorry.
We'll take what we can get.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get. We're that's fine. But
Yeah.
anyway, guys, thanks for listening, watching, and it's race week. So enjoy the race this weekend, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
See ya.
Latest. All right, stop the fucking recording.